pales into insignificance compared to the nuclear weapon, but we still keep the nuclear weapon as a legal instrument. It is patently absurd, and it will continue to be there as a threat to human civilization unless all of you, all the citizens of the world, and the young people in particular, and the young lawyers, rise up in protest and tell the rulers of all countries, you cannot do this. The reason why rulers are getting away with all this unlawful conduct is that the people of the world know nothing of international law. They think it is something imposed on us from above, something alien to us, something meant only for the experts. International law concerns each and every one of you. You should know something of its basic principles, because you are going to be, especially the young people here, you are going to be citizens of the one world of the future. Nationality and patriotism and all that is going to yield to your dedication to the one world of the future. We all share a small planet which is shrinking in its resources, and we have to act as global citizens. And that is why we must think in terms of one human family. Now, I was talking about Buddhism. You know, the Lord Buddha said this. He was one of the first to say it. You take any species of life, whether you take an earthworm or a snake or a fish or a bird or a mammal, whatever. You take all of them and you will find that there are so many subspecies within them. But with the human being, we are all one. There are no subspecies within the human family. We may make silly differences among ourselves, but we are all one human family. Now, Buddhism said that 2,500 years ago. And Lord Buddha himself resolved so many disputes peacefully. In fact, when I was on the court, it so happens that the International Court is housed in a beautiful palace called the Peace Palace, which was a donation of Andrew Carnegie, an American millionaire, he was the richest man in the world in his time. But he had done a tour of India, Sri Lanka. He had met, among others, Indian hermits and Buddhist monks. I think his fortune was $100 million in 1900. And then he went back and made this pronouncement. He said, it is a disgrace to die rich. And because he had so much wealth, it was an utter disgrace for him to die with all that wealth. And he decided that before he died, he would give it all away. And he gave it for purposes of peace and education. And one of the places he donated was the Peace Palace. Now in the Peace Palace, it's a palace. That's where we worked. I was there for 10 years. And there were works of art made by almost every country in the world. But I found that there was no work of art presented by Sri Lanka. So I thought it was high time we gave something. It so happens that I was reference made to my school days at Royal. One of my classmates was the famous sculptor Tissa Ranasinghe. So I asked Tissa Ranasinghe to make a bronze, a large bronze about that size, of Lord Buddha settling a dispute, because he came to Sri Lanka also and settled a dispute between two chieftains. And Tissa made a beautiful plaque in bronze of this, the Buddha settling the dispute between the two chieftains. The armies are drawn up in battle array behind them, but the two chieftains come before the Buddha and break their swords at his feet. What more beautiful representation of the peaceful settlement of disputes. So I got that plaque made. The government of Sri Lanka also cooperated, and we presented it to the Peace Palace. And I had it hung outside the deliberation chamber of the judges. That is our tradition of dispute resolution at the highest possible level, and it is there now before the International Court. So like that, we must remind Western culture that it is far too narrow. It has got much broader precedents to think about. Now, when I read some of these things, I get really disturbed. For example, Lord Macaulay, one of the greatest and most literate Englishmen of his time. He was also a member, I think, of the Viceroy's Council in England. But anyway, Lord Macaulay had written a sentence like this: one shelf of a good English library is worth more than all the native literature of India and Egypt. That's one line from Macaulay. That was the way English people of the 19th century looked upon other cultures. Of course, there were some who were great scholars, but there was a general attitude of disdain for other cultures. Now we have to correct that and show them the richness of it. I've given you two examples, Hinduism and Buddhism. I'll give you another example from Buddhism. There is the famous episode, all of you know it, where King Devanapiyatissa was out hunting, and the Arahat Mahinda, son of the Emperor Asoka, appeared before him and said, "What is this you are doing? You okay?" And remember, and because he was killing the animals also, you may be the king of this country, but you are not the owner of this land. Now that is the essence of the principle of trusteeship of land, sustainable development. You enjoy the land. Adam and Eve were given the Garden of Eden for them to enjoy, but not for them to destroy, for them to enjoy and preserve for the benefit of later people. So whatever we have, we must not destroy. But our generation is destroying the rightful inheritance of all generations yet to come if we keep the nuclear bomb. I've been president for many years of the International Association of Lawyers Against Nuclear Arms. We have been campaigning as hard as we can to have this weapon abolished, because the moment the next weapon is used, I'm afraid the days of civilization are numbered. Why? Last time the nuclear weapon was used on a lame duck target, Hiroshima and Nagasaki would not respond. The next time a nuclear weapon is used anywhere for any purpose, there will be a nuclear retaliation, because other people also have the nuclear bomb. And when the bombs start flying in both directions, the scientists tell us the atmosphere will be clouded over with the debris. There will be a nuclear winter. There will be worldwide crop failures, and we will be reduced to worse than the Stone Age. We might be rummaging among the ruins of forests to see whether there was something that we could eat. That could happen if there is a nuclear exchange. So the problem is an urgent one, and the solution to it is that international law should command more respect. And the solution to that is to show that international law is based not on the traditions of one civilization, but on the traditions of the whole world. I've spoken to you about Hinduism, I've spoken to you about Buddhism. Let me tell you about Islam now. Now, long before Grotius wrote his famous treatise in 1625, maybe even 700 or 800 years earlier, Islamic tourists like Al-Shaybani have been writing treatises on international law. Treatises on what? The duty to obey, help your neighbor in distress. The duty to settle your disputes peacefully. The duty to respect your treaties. The duty to observe humanitarian conduct. All the principles of international law were written in the form of treatises, multi-volume treatises, in the Islamic world, hundreds of years before Grotius wrote his famous book on War and Peace. And why was that? That was because of the huge revival of learning in the Islamic world, which gave a stimulus to the whole world. Now, in the 9th, 10th, 11th centuries, the church was getting rather, it was trying to put a sort of barrier on knowledge, because, sad to say, some of the church people wanted to monopolize knowledge. So they said, what God wants you to know is in the Holy Book. Don't think too much of your human intellect. If God wants you to know it, He would have told you so. But so there was a curb on human inquiry. But the Holy Prophet of Islam, what did he say? There was a hadith to this effect. The ink of the scholar is holier than the blood of the martyr. What a beautiful statement. The ink of the scholar is holier than the blood of the martyr. Knowledge is so important that you should even go to China in search of it. So in consequence of that, Islamic scholars revived learning. They pursued learning to the best of their ability. sociology, economics, history, political science, theology, physics, chemistry, whatever you read, they all blossom in the Islamic world when the lights of learning were being turned out in Europe. So that was very sad. And then there was great Islamic scholarship in Islamic Spain. So there was a man called Averroes who worked out what he called the doctrine of double truth. That is, there is truth that comes to us by the divine revelation in the holy books. But God has also given us an intellect for us to use it. So let us use it also to find out knowledge. So Averroes worked out the doctrine of double truth. Averroes was so influential in Islamic Spain that we even had followers in the University of Paris who were known as Averroists. The Averroists took this doctrine of double truth to the University of Paris and they were told to get out. So illegitimate. Because that was the prevailing thinking. Till Thomas Aquinas, the great philosopher of the Catholic Church, he had read the works of Averroes and he came along and said, no, there is a lot in what Averroes says, we must accept it. And we accepted the doctrine of double truth. Now let me tell you a little story about this. You all know Julius Stone. Julius Stone, to my mind, was the greatest legal philosopher of the 20th century. When we were law students, he was a star in the jurisprudential sky. We had to all to read his books. Now, it so happened that when I was teaching at Monash, Julius Stone would come there once in 2 or 3 years and made friends with us and so on. And because I was teaching his subject, he would sometimes come with me to my class on legal philosophy. And now, so it was a tremendous thing for me to have this world legal luminary sitting with me when I was teaching my class. So one day Julius Stone had come there. He said, I'm coming to you, with you in your class. And that was the day I was telling my students about this Islamic learning story that I've just told you about Averroes and Aquinas. So I told them this, and that's what I told you now. And then Julius Stone said, stop, I want to make a comment. So I was worried that Stone was going to contradict me and give me some trouble. But this is what the greatest jurist of the 20th century said. Thanks to the work of Averroes and Avicenna and of Aquinas, these are his words, the stable door was opened in which the horse of reason had been confined. The horse bolted and could never be put back again. That's what Stone said. So there, the highest scholar of the Western world was accepting the Islamic contribution to the revival of learning. And that is what led to the renaissance of learning and the Reformation and all the later history of Europe. But these things are not known. So these are things we must make known. We must make peace education and interreligious instruction compulsory in schools. I've been campaigning for that here, and I don't seem to make much progress. We must have comparative education and interreligious instruction available in all schools. Reference was made to a comparative religion prize in Royal. At Royal, we had the custom of being asked to learn something of all religions. And at assembly in school, every morning, when I was in school, there were only 500 boys in the school. We all assembled every morning. And when we assembled, the principal would read out just for 5 minutes. Today from the Quran, tomorrow from the Bible, next day from the Dhammapada, next day from the Bhagavad Gita. And we knew something about the 4 religions, even as little fellows. Now we must have that in Sri Lanka, and we can set an example to the world. And I've been campaigning overseas as well to have this. We have got to do these things if we are to save civilization, because ours is the most wasteful generation that has ever lived. What we